Computer. Brian, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great, Pino. How are you?
I'm doing good for a Wednesday. So time flies. We're already into mid-May, right?
Yeah, man. It
I can't believe.
yeah. Weeks go by like days, it seems these days.
Yeah, for sure. So okay, Brian. So I know we chatted last time. You are a mental and how do we say mental health and emotional coach. Is that correct?
Yeah, mindfulness, emotional fitness, essentially. So
Awesome.
yeah.
T Tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, what led you to this path. Because I know prior your earlier career, you spent time in sales and
I was
such.
actually so I was in engineering and in my corporate years, and I had later became an entrepreneur. And that all of this sort of led up to why I'm doing what I do now. Uh,
Yeah,
I had some success as an entrepreneur. It was interesting. I created a online business in parallel with my corporate job and ended up replacing my salary and left. And at that point, for the first time in my life, I had no structure or no boss or no um, guidelines to play within. And I had some early success. And I think it was through that point of my life that, when you grow up and you're like, okay, I want my life to look like this, and
yeah,
whatever you might model somebody or something. And suddenly one day I found myself, and I had a great place. I was living in a beautiful condo, had a car, had lots of disposable money, traveling, great friends, great parties.
yeah,
Had built like the body and the things I wanted to look like on the outside, but I
yeah,
found myself really empty and I found myself really disconnected. And I found that if I didn't catch that shiny object, or if I wasn't in that party flow, in between those periods, I was feeling really, really actually depressed, oftentimes, or even just anxious. So the highs were high, the lows were low, and it didn't feel like I thought it would to be in that place. And so I started to do a little bit of work on the inside. So basically, I just started to like what's meditation all about. Started to
yeah,
look into that and
yeah,
what does it mean to wake up? And that's what was sort of happening for me. I was just starting to notice things from a different perspective. It's just like suddenly the door opened a little bit. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
kind of popped out. And then, but long story short, I was kind of playing both sides of the fence for a while, had
yeah.
an accidental drug overdose. I pushed things too far
Well,
at some point. And this coincided with the birth of my first child. So this was, trying for years to have a baby. And suddenly I have this beautiful little girl, and I'm in a coma for 3 days in ICU. And I open my eyes and I just realized, like, wow, now is the time to make that change. And not, if
well,
not for me, for her. So
yeah,
moving forward, I mean, I that was my why. That was my anchor to really start to do that work. And,
right.
this is going back about 13, 14 years ago. And like, honestly, along the way, still lots of ups and downs and setbacks, but I was really diligent about doing that work. And through
Yeah,
that work, I started to come through that place where at some point people around me were like, "Hey, like, what are you doing? Like, you're showing up a lot differently. It's just a different feeling around that. You seem to have a sort of peace. I don't see you being reactive anymore for the
yeah.
most part." And so that's what moved me into this space. Eventually, I started to help some family and some friends, and then I just expanded into a full coaching business.
Okay, and how long you been doing that for?
6 years
Well,
consistently for 6 years. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And your focus of your business again, is it just health and wellness? Is it specifically because I know we talked a lot about breathing. Is it just focused on breathing or is it tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I would say, I always open the door to stress management as sort of the thing that we all understand. So,
Yeah,
how do we manage stress? Well, there's different types of stress. Physical stress, we know if we break a bone,
yeah,
chemical stress, microplastics, even a hangover is chemical stress, but it's the emotional stress
yeah,
that people are affected by the most. And
yeah,
stress is the health epidemic of the 21st century. Everybody knows what that is for them. And a lot of people are overwhelmed, and all like 90% of diseases stem from inflammation, which is usually created through chronic stress. And
mhm,
so everybody's affected by that. And
yeah,
so my mission and work is to help people manage stress. That's an inside job. And so breath work is one modality to do that. Awareness is the first thing. So I help people mindfulness and awareness are kind of the same things,
Yeah.
and it's something that can be developed. So all these
Okay.
things are skills that we can develop. So just like
Okay.
training your body to be stronger, to be faster, whatever it might be,
Yeah. Yeah.
we can train our minds and we can train our nervous systems
Okay.
to become more aware, to understand what's happening, to quit pushing down all of the feelings that want to come up.
Right.
And we're not taught that as children.
I agree. Yeah, we've never been taught that, right? So, Brian, why? I just feel like everyone's at an all time. Everyone's. It seems like everyone I talk to, everyone's dealing with some level of stress. Why are we so stressed out now? Like, is it? Do we put more pressure on ourselves? Is it our partners? Like, what is it?
Yeah, it's we're overwhelmed by noise these days. So I
Yeah.
mean, this we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of those are skewed to negative. We're wired for survival and not happiness. And so
Yeah.
we have these 60,000 thoughts, 80% of them, let's say, are negative because we're looking out for what could go wrong.
Yeah.
And we're just programmed and patterned. And so we're literally running the same algorithm every single day. So
Yeah.
95% of the thoughts are the same. And then you got this. This isn't
Yeah.
something that's new. That's just an extension of the thinking mind. So that's just adding more noise. You have the best and smartest engineers in the world grabbing your attention away
Yeah.
from this moment to pull you into whatever it is that you like, and they're going to give you a lot more of that.
Yeah.
So and then in that scrolling process, we're creating all these little dopamine releases and things. So
Yeah.
technology, as useful as it is a big problem. And
Yeah.
we also live in very urbanized communities for the most part now. So we've
Yeah.
really disconnected ourselves from nature, which is our sense of our true being. And yeah, things are just faster now. It's
Yeah.
just things are faster. There's more demands on people. And so it's more important than ever for everyone to take accountability for doing the work for themselves because there's nobody coming to save us. There's the healthcare system is designed to basically put a band-aid on the problem, but the
Yeah.
problem is internal
Yeah.
and it's simple things, Pino. It's not
Yeah.
everybody wants to take a pill and
Yeah.
feel better, but the pill really is
The
usually
Band-Aid.
no cost things. It's like get into nature, start to
Yeah.
create some space in your day, protect time
Yeah.
for a few deep breaths to reflect, to actually check in, because it's a constant calibration. So,
Right.
my mission is to help people reconnect with themselves through these
Yeah.
practices and establish that habit. Because when they establish that habit and they practice that over a period of time,
Yeah.
suddenly they start to notice something. A new momentum starts to open up, and there's more
Yeah.
space there for feelings of peacefulness and bliss to arise. There's more space there for all the problems they're trying to solve. When you actually let go for a minute and sit back, those answers come. There's
Yeah.
wisdom and intuition in silence, and
Yeah.
there's so much noise out
Yeah.
there at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. Agreed. So, Brian, how do we, in this crazy world we live in now, with all these stressors, how do we manage it? Talk to us about how you coach your clients on managing. We talk about breathing, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it's lifestyle at the end of the day, and there are things that you can do and take, but sleep, diet, and exercise are usually the foundation of mental and physical health.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting good night's sleep, you will start right there. If you're
Yeah.
not sleeping 3 or 4 nights in a row deeply and
Yeah.
getting those proper metrics,
Yeah.
that's usually the first red flag for chronic stress. So,
Yeah.
so just talking about simple lifestyle things, and then we start to kind of look at more detailed things that help you train your mind and create a little bit of space there. So breath work and meditation are always at the foundation of what I teach. And a lot
Yeah.
of people don't practice those things.
Yeah.
22,000 breaths a day. Most people don't take one conscious, just that is a
Yeah.
lever on my nervous system that creates a little
Yeah.
bit of space and relief in the moment.
Yeah.
Things like cold exposure, we chatted a bit about that, but that's a wonderful way to train the nervous system
Yeah.
with a stress response. So there's something called good stress as well.
Yeah.
And that's like, chronic stress is something that is a low-lying thing. Like, let's just say I'm having an issue with my partner right now.
Yeah.
And It's not affecting. I'm still able to go through the motions. I'm able to work, but there's a low lying grumble of noise there.
Yeah.
There could be a fear, a shame, a guilt, an anger, a resentment, whatever it might be. And it's just there, but it's festering slowly. And what is that doing? That's leaking energy from what I could be putting out into being 100% in how I show up,
Yeah.
for my clients, for my children, for my friends, for whatever I'm after. So just being aware of that is a big deal. But all of these practices just help us understand that to be more in the present moment. Because so often we're just worrying about what's happening down the road,
Yeah.
or we're just stuck lingering somewhere in the past. So just how do we live in this present moment more clearly? And that's really the work, to spend more time there and notice when we're not there.
Okay. Okay. Brian, I asked you on our last call, you talked about the importance of breathing, and we talked about, people don't even stopping to realize one breath per day, but you talk about how many breaths per day should we be taking, you said?
Well, we take 22,000 breaths a day unconsciously. The body just breathes itself. So
Yeah.
conscious breathing means I'm going to use my breathing in a
Yep.
in a particular pattern, for a particular duration, and maybe with retention, meaning I'm going to hold my breath as well.
Yeah.
There's certain patterns and ways of consciously breathing to create incredible effects. So I actually went to a breathing workshop last night with one of the top guys in this country. He just happened to be here and invited me to like a little personal thing he had for his birthday. And Pino, like I don't have a chance to receive those types of sessions very often, but I do facilitate them often.
Yeah.
And a deep, so that there's different types of breathing. So that is like, that is something you do every so often. You can do a very deep breathing session and literally release what it would take years of talk therapy to get to, because
Yeah.
there's just things trapped in our body. We're
Yeah.
some of our life's experiences, and we pick up all the stored junk along the way.
Yep.
So let's say when I was a kid and there's uh, John got the red bike, and I got the blue bike, but I wanted the red one. And now every time I see something blue, it triggers something within me, right? That's just something I'm holding on to that I can let go. So breath work will release those things in
Yep.
a deeper session, but just in the moment,
Mm.
three or four deep breaths, or there's a couple of other different patterns, of breathing. Within
Yep.
2 minutes, I can literally change my nervous system, take me out of that fight or flight, all the way back down to rest and digest.
Right.
Let my nervous system feel safe for a moment,
Yeah.
which really brings me back online, allows me to be fully present. Because
Okay.
again, in that, if I've got that fear going, I'm in that fight or flight, and there's that low-lying noise. Again, I'm not fully present. I'm here, but I'm not here.
Okay. Brian, when is the best time to be breathing? I know you mentioned first thing in the morning. Like I know a lot of people do the meditation in the morning and it sets up that day. Would you
Yeah.
recommend doing that breathing exercise first thing in the morning, midday, at night? For you, what's the best time?
Yeah, so just like to kind of clarify, there's a formal practice, which I would say is when you sit down to specifically say, okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or half an hour. That would be the formal. Informally, I would just say as often as you can, stop and take a couple of breaths just to break that pattern up. Because every time I take a couple of breaths for just a second, at least I'm back in the moment and I can
Yeah.
check in on how I'm feeling. I love setting it up in the morning, and I love combining breath work and meditation together. Meditation's really hard.
Yeah.
You're an A type, so you're on the go,
Yeah.
always thinking, always planning.
Yeah.
So if I said, Pino, sit down right now and just observe your thoughts, a couple seconds later, you'd be problem solving
I'm
something, right?
I'm
Just
flying.
like all
Yeah.
of us, right? So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
so doing a little bit of breath work before segueing into meditation allows us to actually relax a little bit, clear a little bit of space, and then we can
Yeah.
actually just take a moment to notice. And
Yeah.
it's always funny when I teach people to meditate, they're like, "Well, I can't meditate. I can't clear my thoughts. I just keep this stuff just keeps happening."
Yeah.
Well, the fact that they're noticing for a moment that there are thoughts coming and going. Just noticing that is meditation. It's just observing. You're not trying to do anything but just that. So pairing breathwork and meditation together, but doing it in the morning is a great way to start the day. And I always
Yeah.
like equate it to back to noise. If we
Yeah.
wake up in the morning and the first thing we do is look at this,
Yeah.
if we're looking at our phone first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
I'm automatically pulled into a reactive state.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, my breathing is already starting to become more constricted and
Yeah.
contracted.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling tension in my body. I'm
Yeah.
already pulled into someone else's timelines. Most of the time we
Yeah.
look at our phone, we didn't win the lottery. It's some problem to solve or something,
Yeah.
somewhere to go, somewhere to be, something to do, something to achieve.
Yeah.
Creating that space in the morning for yourself, by yourself,
Yeah.
to align. And I like to call it just putting on your armor of resilience
Yeah.
every single day. And it might not seem like much at the time, and then you just go right back into the storm, and that's
Yeah.
life. We have to,
Yeah.
there's the saying, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. So
Yeah.
this is an opportunity to create that space to have your surfboard ready to go for that day. You
Yeah.
do that every single day over a period of time. You start to
Yeah.
notice the days land in a different place.
Yeah.
And you start to notice that over time that you are become over, it does take time, but you become
Yeah.
less reactive and able to
Yeah.
respond more skillfully to those moments.
Yeah.
And I would also just add as well that it's nice to bookend the day a little bit as well. So I like to do some breathing in the morning, but just before bed,
Yeah.
some people you know enjoy prayer. Some people want to write down and journal some gratitude. Some people like to write down maybe a couple of wins on the day because
Yeah.
often we just focus on all the shit that went down rather than
Yeah.
saying, okay, hey, you know what? Even if that win is just like I made it through another healthy day with a,
Yeah.
you know, with this healthy breath, because
Yeah.
sometimes we take that for granted until something happens.
Yeah.
But just having a little bit of a framing and bookending the day that way is just a really
Yeah.
great way to start and finish the day.
Brian, since you started these breathing and on your new journey, have you seen your relationships improve since you take on this new lifestyle?
Well, that's a great question, Pino, because um, a lot of people who you've known for a long period of time, you probably heard the crab in the bucket sort of scenario when you start to change and you don't want to talk about the same things that you talked about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
When you start to evolve vibrationally and consciously, and you start to become more interested in deeper, meaningful experiences rather than superficial, surface level things,
Yeah.
there's a lonely chapter there where you don't necessarily fit into any space anymore. And
Yeah.
so I would like to say that it does improve relationships because it does,
Yeah.
but with the right people who are also on that personal growth path.
Okay.
And the people that are not open to that and they just want things to be the way they were, and they want Brian to be the same Brian circa 1995 or
Yeah.
whatever it was,
Yeah.
are the ones that those relationships don't improve. But life is about growing. Life is about evolving. And so I promise anybody who is on that path that coming through that lonely chapter, you do find your tribe. And over time, these are the kinds of conversations and relationships that are meaningful, that
Yeah.
matter, and that where you really feel connected and seen and heard.
Yeah. For sure. Brian, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and let's talk about coffee. Does coffee? 'Cause she was telling me how damaging coffee is on our nervous system as well too, on our bodies and our nervous system. Would you agree with that? Would you also recommend for coffee lovers out there watching this maybe to cut back on the coffee because it does cause damage on our nervous system?
Yeah, it's interesting how much research is coming up around coffee, like just present day, and
Yeah.
there's some interesting mushroom coffee alternatives and things that seem to be a little less toxic and hard on the adrenals and the nervous system.
Yeah.
A lot of people just love a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, it's a reward
Yeah.
in the morning, and it's something, and because I intermittent fast, and that's another good
Yeah.
stress of hormesis, it's called. So any kind of time I can put myself through some discomfort,
Yeah.
it makes me more resilient in
Right.
whatever that is. But
Yeah.
people that wake up in the morning and grab a coffee right away should not do that. So there's a lot of research around not having that first coffee as soon as you wake up in the morning. Our
Hmm.
bodies take a little time to regulate. We have a lot of cortisol release in the morning. So there's a window for having a coffee that makes a lot more sense, and it's worthwhile just looking into it based on what time you wake
Oh,
up.
okay.
The other big thing with coffee is,
Yep.
you probably know that person who's got that giant coffee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, for
Yeah.
those last few meetings. a caffeine does have an 8-hour half-life. So even if you're not feeling stimulated by caffeine, you're still going to have a much less quality sleep if you're drinking coffee
Yeah,
afternoon
in the
in the
afternoon.
afternoon.
Yeah,
So
it will
so
disrupt
how
your
to
sleep.
keeping in the morning, moderation with everything in life. I mean,
Yeah,
I get the same question around alcohol as well, and I'm
yeah,
entrenched in longevity groups as well. The my skill set around mindfulness and emotional fitness is a pillar in longevity. And alcohol has come up a lot lately, and everybody's like, "Well, it's horrible to drink alcohol." Well, it
yeah,
is not a healthy molecule, but again, it's moderation. Having a drink with your meal
yeah,
in a social environment. If you look at centurions around the world,
yeah,
that's their lifestyle, and
yeah,
organic wine with dinner and your friends is
yeah.
probably going to actually boost your lifespan.
So some alcohol is okay
Yeah, like
in
they say that,
moderation.
yeah, in moderation. Like I think
Yeah,
there's diminishing returns after probably 2 drinks.
yeah. Okay. Talk to us because I know you're big, and I saw on your channel or on your webpage, cold showers or cold plunges. I'd
Yeah.
love to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, I love that practice. It was during COVID
Yep.
that when we were locked down, I lived near Lake Ontario, and that first winter, I'm a big fan of Wim Hof. Wim Hof,
Yeah.
he's considered the
Iceman.
Iceman, 26
Yeah.
world records, but he was really the guy that was talking about ice baths, before anybody else was,
Yeah.
and breath work, and they actually help. They worked well together. Breathing helps calm you down enough to get into the water, but in that year of COVID, I found a massive peace within that practice. So,
Yeah.
as a meditator, I found that when I got into that water, I had to use my mind. I had to still my mind, and I
Yeah.
had to be very present because
Yeah.
the second I started to think about something,
Yeah.
I would feel cold. So I was able to use my mind to kind of create that space. So it forces you into a meditation because my
Yeah.
body is in survival, and
Yeah.
now is not the time to be worried about the grocery list or who I have to text back after that. It was just
Yeah.
there in the present moment.
Yeah.
But that is a beautiful way to create a controlled stress response. So whether it's a lake, cold plunge, or a cold shower, we all have access to a cold shower. That
Yeah.
cold water triggers the same stress response that it would if a tiger came diving through the window right now, or whatever. Maybe somebody flips me off in traffic, whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
My heart rate goes up. I start to hyperventilate a little bit. You know that
Yeah.
gasp when that cold water hits you. You can't prevent that. That's just your
Yeah.
body doing what it does. But
It's
if I
protecting yourself.
overcome that, it is, yes.
Yeah.
And if I overcome that with the breath and the mindset that I can do hard things, and that
Yeah.
I can calm right down and then find some space within that. And
Yeah.
doing that over and over again is what emotional fitness is. Now I'm
Mm,
training my nervous system. Now I'm learning how to emotionally self regulate
mm.
myself in a difficult situation. And that could be applied to universally any external stressor. So
Right.
cold water is wonderful for that, but there's also a whole number of other benefits
Yeah.
around immunity. They've even done a
Yeah.
lot of studies around fat loss. I actually stay leaner because of the
Yeah.
cold showers. You develop
Yeah.
more brown fat cells. There's
Yeah.
a lot of science and books around it now. So
Yeah.
initially, cold was only used, excuse me, for recovery in sports and such, and now it's the mental health benefits are clearly have been studied.
Yeah. But I know, like, sometimes in the afternoon when I'm working, I'm in the office, and towards the end of the day, you're winding down. That energy level isn't where it was in the morning. I'll go into the washroom. I just throw some cold water into
Mm,
my face, and it does give me that little bit of even for that little bit, it gives you that wake up, right? It gives you that kick in the bum, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. And
you know,
and
just even doing that.
if you could actually, you'll see this now as well. People will sometimes use a bowl with ice water and just put
Yep.
their face into it. And
Yep.
they've actually done EKGs and studies, and you can actually see, go to YouTube and you'll see all about it. And this is something very simple for people.
Yep.
But as soon as that reflex kicks in, the
Yep.
body, it's like a full reset. It's like you're rebooting your computer in the afternoon because it's running
Yeah.
a little slow and hot from being pounded on all day, just like your
Yep.
brain and your nervous system.
Yeah.
There's a massive release of dopamine after that cold exposure,
Mm.
250%. And it does not go up and down like, sex, chocolate, or cocaine into
Yep.
a below baseline. It's a sustainable flow. So people become addicted to the dopamine rush from the cold, which is a natural endogenous release. And then the norepinephrine, which is like the energy side. So that's 500% in
Yeah.
the studies that show. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the cold is the replacement for your afternoon coffee.
Okay. I'm going to assume yes, but do you cold plunge every day or cold shower every day?
Yeah, I have a cold plunge, so I
Yeah.
do it every day. And then,
Yeah.
for most people that don't have a cold plunge,
Yeah.
I would just recommend, you having a shower anyway,
Mhm.
have your regular warm shower.
Yeah.
Practice finishing cold. And even
Yeah.
by going half cold initially, you can just kind of get in there, do a little pirouette.
Yeah.
You will gain more tolerance to the cold very quickly, and it's mostly in your mind. Your body
Yeah.
will follow very quickly if
Yeah.
you're able to say, okay, I'm going to just tough it out. And
Yeah.
I mean, you just feel so great after, as you said, you
Yeah.
just feel rejuvenated, but you can just work your way up. And if you
Yeah.
can do uh, about 2 minutes in the cold, you've
Okay.
reached, you're into all the studied benefits. And
Yeah.
11 minutes cumulative over the course of a week
Yep.
gets you into this whole range of studied benefits. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
science to support it.
Okay. So 2 minutes cold exposure, whether it's in the shower or whether it's a cold plunge, they recommend 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes is sort of per session, and then
Yeah.
if you can get 11 over the course of the week,
Yeah.
that's that range of benefit.
Yeah.
Most people that practice it over time, eventually, unless you need a deep shampoo and you need warm water, we'll just
Yeah.
sometimes just go straight into the cold water
Yeah.
and do it that way too.
Okay, Brian, question for you. Is there such thing as what if the water's can water be too cold? Because I know that can be damaging as well too. What if the water's too cold? Is there side effects to it? Like, can you damage the body by going too cold?
Every time you go into cold water, you are damaging the body a little bit, and
You are?
which you are, yeah. And
Okay.
it's and again, this is that process of hormesis. So you are actually breaking something down to come back to build back stronger. So
Is it
these
like the
cold
muscle, Brian? Is like when you lift weights, is it the muscle tearing the
exactly the same
muscle?
thing. That's
It's the same thing.
another hormesis is muscle training. So you're actually tearing muscle fibers to
Yeah.
build themselves stronger. So cold shock proteins are released in the body,
Yeah.
but eventually what this does is starts to do clean up your cellular system. So there's a longevity component to the cold as well,
Yeah.
but it should be done safely. So that's an important question. How cold for how long, and
Yeah.
that's still debatable.
Yeah.
Andrew Huberman recently, because now there's a lot of studies that women or men, uh, metabolically respond differently to cold,
Yeah.
and that's fair. We're not the same in that regard.
Yeah.
They say it doesn't need to be as cold for women, but what it really comes down to is just there is a wall that you're going to hit in the cold, and you're going to notice that wall. So when you hit that wall, can you overcome that first wall,
Yeah.
regardless of the temperature, regardless of the duration? Andrew Huberman was sharing a little bit about it, trying to clear the air where the cold is currently and the science around it. But it really comes
Yeah.
down to noticing that. So typically, they say, anywhere from like 5 to 10 degrees Celsius for the cold.
Yeah.
If you're actually doing an ice plunge, you're anywhere from, 0 to 5 oftentimes. And, I keep mine set at 3 at home.
Yeah. Okay. And Brian, you mentioned too, I think on our last call, you haven't, I know people that opt in cold plunge or cold shower, they less likely to get sick or get a cold or a flu. Is there evidence to support that claim?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm anecdotal evidence right here. I haven't had a cold since 2020, and I used to get them all the time.
Yep.
So it's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
your mom or your grandma's like, don't go, you're gonna catch a cold in the cold. Well, that's not true. So
Yeah.
what we're actually doing is the body's again responding to this type of training by increasing white blood cell count, which is your immunity. So
Mm.
even during COVID, I caught COVID once, and I was still out there in the water during COVID.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, people would argue, well, yeah, if you're already sick, you should not be testing your immune system even more. I mean, that was in hindsight, probably wouldn't have done that again. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, absolutely, bolstered immunity. Like again, like breathing, meditation, walking in nature, cold water. These are just no cost primal elements of being a human being that we've
Yeah.
lost. And
Yeah.
all of these things are available to us. It's just a matter of practicing those things and building
Yeah.
them into your lifestyle.
Yeah. And just getting to those healthy routines, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Getting those routines, because then
yeah.
it's not a negotiable anymore. And I can tell you, man, like after all this time, and I've also guided thousands of people into cold. I mean, we had taken literally over 1,000 people at one time at Humber Bay in for
Yeah.
2 minutes,
Yeah.
but like, and all the retreats and all the things. And I just love when people come through those 2 minutes and they come out of that. And like, you have this lady and 65 years old who jumps out, who just now fucking thinks like, what can't I do? It's just that
Yeah.
powerful thing. And then they're jacked from
Yeah.
all that dopamine and it's like,
Yeah.
and then they're hooked. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Brian, you're getting me so excited. I want to jump into the cold shower right now.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what I meant to say there too is that there's not once that I do it that I look forward to it either. And I almost talk myself out of it every single time.
Yeah.
I like nobody's looking. Do I have to do it? But I mean,
Yeah.
there's a little confidence thing that comes with keeping promises to yourself,
Yeah.
and that's part of the whole process as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian, when you do your coaching, do you do the one-on-one? Do you do group sessions? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I do both.
Okay.
I do one-on-one coaching. I do deep emotional intelligence coaching as well.
Yeah.
Certified with the EQI 2.0.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I work with leaders. I work with a lot of men these days. I work in
Yeah.
groups as well. So group
Yeah.
coaching, I do group retreats, and
Yeah.
I also do a lot of corporate talking workshops and
Okay.
seminars as well.
Nice. Okay, so that's okay. So if anyone's watching this right now and is looking for Brian's services, how do we connect with you? What's the most effective way to connect with your webpage, LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's Brian Coones on all the social platforms, and my
Yeah.
website is briancoones.com.
Awesome. So if anyone's watching this and they want to connect with Brian, highly encourage you to do so. Brian, last question just came to my mind.
Yeah.
Would you happen to know the answer to this? Is stress more prevalent in men or stress more prevalent in women? Or
So that's a great the way you frame the question is interesting because stress is stress and
yeah,
there's all kinds of experiences on the outside. So
yeah,
every individual has their own unique blueprint of life experiences. And
yeah,
so I don't
yeah,
think there's any difference in the gender whatsoever. I think it's the individual. It
yeah.
comes down to how you grew up, how much work you've done, and really all those things combined. And
Right.
your parents and we have a generational thing happening as well, and so some of
Yeah,
that blueprint is there as well. So,
yeah,
not familiar with any difference in gender. It's just
yeah.
basically purely the sum of your life experiences and how much
Yeah,
work you've done to clear that space.
yeah, and I think too, as children, I think everything stems from the home, and I think it starts. I think for me, it starts from the home and those early years, right? I think that plays a big part as well too on how you manage that stress, right? So
Yeah, it's interesting, Pino, because the healing journey, which leads back to that childhood,
yeah,
eventually for me became also a spiritual journey. But
yeah,
whenever I look back, and even in that session I told you I was at last night,
yeah,
they guided us back to, what was the first image of a young child. And I saw myself actually sitting at my grandfather's farm. I was sitting in the barnyard, like the cow was laying down. I was laying beside a cow. I just saw that. I
yeah,
hadn't thought of that in years.
yeah,
But then I had the opportunity to look at myself and just like, hey, little Brian, like I love you, man. I got you. Like I'm here now to be the father that you didn't have. And,
yeah,
those types of awarenesses and conversations and connections to yourself, because
yeah,
that little Pino's still there, the little
yeah,
Brian's still there.
yeah,
If those wounds haven't been healed, we're
yeah,
bound to continue to repeat those behaviors over and
yeah.
over. So
So
ultimately it comes down to that 0 to 7 years and then of course all the formal years that follow.
Brian, for those, what about people that carry wounds? I know people, those scars that happen early on in years, and then they carry them unknowingly, and then they bring them they carry those and they manifest in other relationships, right? Whether it be in marriage or whether it be in business relationships, right? So you talk about healing those wounds. How do you one recognize the wounds and then how do you heal them?
Yeah. Well, you recognize them. That's the awareness piece. So you start to notice your patterns, and
Yeah,
relationships is a perfect mirror. It's a reflection of yourself. And so you start to see yourself through this person and you don't, unless we have the contrast of connections with others, it's really hard to notice
yeah,
those parts of ourselves. So
right.
really, it's just noticing those things, being curious about those things,
Yeah,
being open about those things, accepting the feelings that come up with them, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. And it's just
yeah,
that process over time that we can start to discharge some of that energy. Because
right.
ultimately, say something happened to me horrible when I was 7 years old, and
Yeah,
XYZ brings that same feeling up with me. If I'm able to consciously bring myself back to that place and that feeling, and then refile that memory with inert emotion, with no pain or abandonment or whatever it might be associated
Right.
with it, if I could,
Right.
because the memory is not going away, but the
Yeah.
feeling associated with it can.
Yeah.
That's healing.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Brian, I swear, man, I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, those
I'm
are
so
awesome
happy.
questions, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Listen, I'm so glad we connected. I'm gonna share this video on my social network, on my platforms, and I'll definitely share the word about what you do and how you help people. And again, if anyone's watching this, I highly encourage you to connect with Brian. So, Brian, thank you for your time.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Awesome, man. We'll stay in touch.
Sounds good.
Cheers.